Hello everyone, welcome to the Timeform preview of the Cheltenham Festival. I'm Matt Gardner, and joining me on the far side, jumps editor Dan Barber, and in the middle, senior analyst Rory King. Guys, we're 5 weeks out, just come off the back of a really good weekend in Ireland. Imagine excitement sort of really ramping up now.
Yeah, absolutely. 5 weeks, and that's 3 more weeks than I've had bets so far. At the end of this, I'm hoping Rory in particular is going to unveil me with some other good things that I need to jump on.
I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see as we go.
Yeah, so we're going to plan is to run through the divisions. We'll start with the Novice Hurdlers, and we'll start at the very start of the week with the Supreme. Like I said, we've just come off the Dublin Racing Festival. Plenty of clues there, including for this race in particular as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the trouble generally is probably always the case, but I suppose when you're not had as many bets as you might ordinarily have by this stage, you're sort of looking for reasons to keep that the case. So I'm still in a bit of a muddle as to where these horses will be going. That is the case every year, of course it is. But Envoi looked like he was a bona fide Supreme horse. They were even talking about him as the champion. Then next minute, he's 5-4 fab for the Ballymore, and that's the consensus that he's definitely going for that. And the same goes for the 2 or 3 that Mullins has, and he's going to have to shuffle the pack. He rarely tends to run them against each other. He'll do everything he can to avoid one of the other stars, but we know his record in the Supreme, and his winner over the weekend laid down a pretty big marker at this stage.
Yeah, I think so. I think I thought that performance yesterday from Asterion Forlonge was probably, in terms of the Supreme, so if we leave out, we think Envoi is going to run the Ballymore, leave him out for now.
Yeah.
I think that was the by a little way the best 2-mile novice hurdling performance that we've seen so far, and I guess even more remarkable given that it's a horse that had only made its hurdling debut 4 weeks earlier. I think that just goes to show the size of the engine that horse has. The fact that him and Easy Work, who had looked a very promising horse himself, had won his 2 hurdle runs before that, readily won at Limerick at Christmas. Those two got racing from a very early stage, neck and neck all the way down the back straight at Leopardstown. And then after the second last, which Asterion Forlonge maybe didn't even jump quite as fluently as Easy Work, he then just powered away from Easy Work and Mount Leinster, who seemed to have been the Willie Mullins' first choice for that race. The first string town end was on Mount Leinster. He did make a couple of mistakes, particularly 2 out, but I don't think you can have any argument that comfortably the best horse run and won. And the fact that race has been such a good trial over the last, particularly in the last decade.
Yeah, absolutely.
It used to be the Deloitte Hurdle used to be over 2.25 miles, didn't it? But even then it was still more of a Supreme trial, and I think even though there's only been 2 previous years since they reduced it to 2 miles, one of which was won by Samcro, who then went and stepped up for the Ballymore. Last year, Classical Dream won it narrowly from a stablemate, and then went and basically bolted up in the Supreme.
Yeah, that was.
I think it just comes at a perfect stage of the season for novice hurdlers. Gives you 5 weeks before Cheltenham. Particularly Mullins, who isn't in a rush to get out his best horses before Christmas all the time.
Yeah.
Envoi Allen, for instance, is interesting. He ran right at the start of November. He made his hurdling debut. Elliott kind of takes a slightly different approach to Mullins in terms of chasers as well, but particularly hurdlers. He likes to get them out, get experience into them before Christmas. And now it seems that both Envoi Allen and his other very good novice hurdler, Abracadabra. Envoi Allen obviously won the Grade 1 at Naas in early January. But Abracadabra hasn't been seen since Christmas, and Envoi Allen since early January, so they're going to be going into Cheltenham without having run for at least 2 months.
Because they had his form boosted at the weekend.
Yeah. So you can take that you can take it different ways, can't you? You know, the fact that they've got that experience, they're then being saved, trained expressly for Cheltenham, or the view of an improving horse who's winning a key race 5 weeks out of Cheltenham, and of course, in terms of Asterion Forlonge, still a very lightly raced horse who's may well have come on again just for that second run over hurdles.
I sort of think their approaches are different. They both had ridiculous success there, but I almost think it's a British and Irish thing. There isn't. I just think this, as you say, the 5 weeks thing's quite key, because you get horses that are young and inexperienced having proper races that put meat on the bones. It's probably the reason why the Irish have dominated the bumper in large part over the years, because their horses don't win at fours on, cantering clear and not learning anything. They're running well-run bumpers full of Gigginstown future staying chasers, and they know the jobs, or they're forced to know the jobs, and they certainly learn the jobs, and that level of conditioning does stand them in good stead. And I think Classical Dream would be a great case in point there, because on the bare form of last year's, it was nowhere near what he went on to achieve in the Supreme. I'm not saying his bare form matches up, and I believe there's been a bit of conjecture as to where he might go, but could the main danger in a Supreme in terms of engine be in the same ownership as the weekends winner in Shishkin?
Yeah, it's links right into the point you were just making there in terms of the preparation that these horses have had, because you put Shishkin and then you can throw in another Henderson horse who's only had one run over hurdle, Chantry House. Yeah, they've both.
Well, Mr. Coffee was in the same.
Mr. Coffee was similar, and then he kind of blotted his copyright a bit. But both of those two, Shishkin admittedly has had 2 runs over hurdles, but the first of them lasted all of two flights before he came down. So effectively, just had the 1 run, and likewise Chantry House. I think Shishkin actually holds an entry later this week over slightly further.
You'd want to see him run, wouldn't you?
But yeah, so we're in a position now where these horses, they need to be running again. These horses that have only had 1, particularly 1, in some cases 2 runs, very short on experience. They need to be running again in the next week or 2, and we'll then get a better idea. But yeah, certainly the way Shishkin won at Newbury was very, very striking, wasn't it? It was only a maiden hurdle or a novice hurdle compared to a grade 1 yesterday that we're talking about, but the way that he jumped a lot better than obviously when he came down on his debut, the way that he travelled and the way that he sprinted clear of a horse who had looked quite promising himself in chasing up Mr. Coffey, who you just mentioned there on his previous start. He quickly distanced him, didn't he?
Yeah, looked like it might be 2 or 3 lengths in it for most of the running before you know it.
Yeah.
Just pouring it on. I suppose that to me looked more speed than.
I thought the same. Speed. Yeah, I thought the same.
But I think such strength at the finish can lull trains into thinking, oh well, let's see how strongly he stayed on.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a bit of a price discrepancy between the two? Just looking, Shishkin is the shorter price of the 2 at the moment. Is some of that factored into the fact that the Mullins horse might go somewhere else?
It's funny you mentioned about how it's hard to work out where Mullins horses in particular are going to run. I might be completely wrong, but I think I have some sort of reading as to what the likely big guns in each race are. I think they think quite a lot of the big Getaway, who's in the same colours as well.
Yeah.
And who's been running over 2.5 miles. I think he's going to be running in the 2.5 mile race. And I can't see how Mullins is going to want him to run against Asterion Forlonge.
Yeah.
So I think Asterion Forlonge is going to run in the Supreme, and then I think they all it's quite odd in a way to think that these horses, and it was the case with Champagne Fever. Do you remember when Champagne Fever won the same race yesterday at Leopardstown when it was 2 1/4 at the Deloitte? They had a horse, I can't remember who it was, but they had a horse who was firmly earmarked for the 2.5 mile race. So he had the options of basically the Albert Bartlett or the Supreme.
Okay, yeah.
And a lot of the Mullins horses do have entries in the Albert Bartlett as well. But I think that Monkfish is their number one for the Albert Bartlett.
Okay.
He's only entered in the Albert Bartlett.
Right,
Which is
okay.
interesting. He doesn't even have an entry in the shorter race, and I think that the way he's progressed, the way he won at Thurles recently, I think he could be the number one for the Albert Bartlett. The big breakaway for the 2.5 mile race, and Asterion Forlonge, I think, will be their supreme horse.
And with a different trainer angle, that means they can still run
so
Shishkin. in the
Shishkin
Supreme
could run
against-
in that, or he could run in the 2.5 mile race.
So it doesn't really matter
what
because
happens
it's different
since,
ownership.
but
Yeah, the big breakaway looked extremely good, hasn't he? I mean, a bit like Envoi, and you've got a horse there that's got significant physical scope, as his name suggests, and as the price tag of Envoi Allen in the first place suggested with him. Yet they have an agility that common and garden horses don't have of that size. He's not just a
Yeah.
big brute that's a French Ollie type who's blundering his way through flights, because he doesn't have the agility.
Yeah,
It's
that-
quite the
that-
opposite, even though a mistake, which was a bit unfortunate. He probably should have had the race sewn up anyway.
yeah,
Did for him at the last of the time before.
yeah.
When you mentioned Envoi Island, we'll see, there is going to be crossover between the Supreme and the Ballymore at this stage. He is a really short price, isn't he? Is there sort of substance to that as well? I mean, obviously he has been impressive, but is there depth to the form that he's shown so far as well? Or
I think there is,
yeah,
There definitely
but
is.
there's. Think of the depth of that champion bumper that he won as well. I know Blue Sari hasn't pulled up any trees. He's been a bit disappointing, but of course there's the caveat of what's the ultimate aim with the JP horses anyway. But the likes of Thyme has established himself as probably the leading British trained staying novice, and he beat him fair and square.
Yeah.
He's again a very professional horse, jumps well, probably tactically versatile, but I think in a Supreme they'd want to make use of him. That's something else as well. Thinking of the winners of this race that Mullins has had, it's often deemed to be, it's a speed test, the Supreme, but a lot of them have won it en route to proving to be more staying types, like Tour and maybe Classical Dream and Duvan are two exceptions, but I think Champagne Fever was another who you ride the horse forcefully, make use of the experience, the extra track craft that they've gained from winning proper races in the homeland, and that seems to count for a lot more. I think back even to the years of Strawberry, Big Price's anti-post, and he for me was the fastest horse in the race. I thought he'd win the race, and he shot clear, fluffed the last, and it was a staying type in Alpha Roth who came and in Noland. Sorry, he came and chinned. Was it Alpha or Noland? Noland, I think, who chinned him on the line.
No, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
Alas, it was
yeah.
it was a John Hale's horse,
Yeah.
breaking my heart, whichever one it was.
But going back to Envoi Allen's form, it was already looking like it was working out well before even the Gavin Cromwell horse came out on Saturday and finished very close up in the Irish Champion Hurdle, which just puts the form into an even better light, I think.
That might be one of three things. It's either a massive compliment, it's either a massive slight on Honeysuckle, or it's somewhere in between. And I think we know from experience it's often just somewhere in between, isn't it?
But even he beat Abracadabras, who came out and won at Christmas quite comfortably. Not a strong race, but
He's a fast horse. He's all over 2 mile races, isn't he? So I think that's more to Envoi Allen's credit again, that he was able to see him off over 2, but in hard fought enough fashion. He had to work to open up late and get away from him. But
do you think this year is going to be a little bit of a case of, obviously Envoi Allen is in that sort of mid-distance group, do you reckon horses that might run in that in other years would potentially look to sort of stretch out and go to 3 miles, maybe drop back to Supreme just to avoid him possibly?
I think the difference is stark though between. I think you could get a fair few Supreme winners who could win a Ballymore, but not many Ballymore winners who could win the Albert Bartlett. Just because it's later in the meeting. If there's been any rain, you're on the worst end of it. There've been probably watering to maintain throughout the week, and on inexperienced horses, they almost get ridden like they're experienced horses and are asked to set a pace that not many of them can sustain. And we've seen some absolutely bizarre results in that.
Well, I was looking earlier on, the last 6 winners have been 11 to 1 or bigger, I think, 25s, 33s, that sort of thing. Do you reckon Time Hill might go that route instead of the Ballymore, or where do you see him?
He's never not seen a race out really well. I mean, I had a real down on the dam has produced so many horses that win on debut and don't progress, and he's completely the opposite to that. I've never seen him weak at the end of a race, but still, it's one thing doing it over that sort of trip.
Yeah.
So then, it's almost a race that doesn't reward quality. That I think, I just don't, it just rewards pure staying power. Maybe that's what it's designed for, but that would concern me with him. It looks the obvious port of call. He seems to be building up to that with him. But is he an out and out sluggard? I'm not sure he is.
It's interesting that you mentioned the dam there and horses that maybe don't go on. I think there was a slight bit of concern in his last win in the Cheltenham, in that he was lugging left and he gave a flick of his tail, didn't he?
He's a family with temperament. Definitely.
Yeah, I haven't really heard any mention of that anywhere else. But that for me, particularly if you're talking about going into that attritional Bartlett, that would be in the back of your mind as to
when it gets really tough.
Yeah.
Does he want to go through with it and fight? It's just not. It doesn't look a slow horse.
No.
It's one thing seeing races out well over shorter distances, and the natural assumption is, you just keep going up in trip.
Yeah.
But to champion bumper placed horse who's being expected to suddenly a year later he's a plodding 3 miler. I don't think anything he's done in the intervening period suggests so, and I don't think it's normal convention either to think that he'd be a complete plodder.
Yeah, and given that we think that the strongest form over the shorter races is in Ireland, it makes sense then that it could be the case for the longer race as well. And I think both Monkfish, who I mentioned, and also the horse that won at Leopardstown on Saturday, latest exhibition, both look like they have strong bits of form and look just the right type for this race, I think. Latest exhibition wasn't flash on Saturday, but there was kind of an inevitability about it. As soon as he sort of got within a length, turning for home, you just thought that he would be the one who would grind it out best, and that's how it proved. And
he's striking. I'm just thinking back to that race. Was it the Andy Dufresne race when you met him first time? And he was given a peculiar ride in some ways, dropped out in a small field, but he made his headway. Oh, it was against Abracadabras, wasn't it? He made his headway really quickly, and then I don't know if he was done for speed or whatever it was. But similarly with Thyme Hill, he possibly stays better than Thyme Hill. Can't say for definite at this stage, but again, I don't want any horse that travels really.
Yeah.
I don't know what the solution is to this, and I honestly don't have a plodding stayer on my mind for it. But
I think I'd throw in Harry Senior into the same category as well, because
true.
I think a lot of people seem to think when he won at Cheltenham the other weekend that he just outstayed King Roland, but I'm not so sure. I think if you watch it back, he got in a bit of trouble rounding the turn for home, and he actually had to wait for a gap, and then I thought he actually picked up really well. I thought he might be another one who's perhaps slightly almost too quick for the
that's like 19 and a half, 20 furlongs.
Yeah.
I mean, he gave. I know he got the run of the race at Aintree, but he gave a quick horse in Edwardstone plenty to think about.
He only headed in the final 50 yards, wasn't he?
Yeah, after the same, and I didn't think that was Bowen's finest hour either. Love the Bowen brothers, they're great riders, but he's basically burst King Roland, who tugs his way around the outside, big sweeping move. I'm the first person to say that, you want to be wide at Cheltenham in most cases, but that definitely wasn't the situation at the last meeting. And Harry Senior was able to, in meeting trouble, was able to conserve a bit of energy probably while King Roland's flat out, or at full pace anyway around the outer, and he saved ground and King Roland couldn't sustain the run.
Yeah, maybe the out and out stayer that we're.
I hope I know where you're going
is the Welsh national placed Ramses de Teillee.
Now that was impressive. That whether Champagne wants an out mud bath, I don't know, but again, after getting tackled by that horse who ties in with Thyme Hill, ties in with a lot of the best British novice form, what he did to him late on, again, he's a Welsh national horse, you don't expect him to lack for stamina, it's absolutely his strength, but it's absolutely what you want in this race as well. The only concern would be jockey maybe overdoing it, knowing that, and going too hard. But he almost looks like he can't go hard enough on him at this stage.
And often with horses that have been over fences for a couple of seasons, you're a bit concerned about their jumping when they go back over hurdles. But his jumping doesn't look an issue to me. I thought he'd jump fine at Doncaster, and like you say, if he's still quite a big price, isn't he? And he might be one to keep in mind for the day if there is rain, if it is properly soft ground, bordering on heavy ground.
That might be. I don't know. That race won't go when they do the swap deal with the mares. But if a refugee from chasing wins that, having contested Welsh Nationals and all the big state handicaps in the calendar, comes and makes a mockery of things by winning a novice hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival, it would certainly confirm its status as the poor relation to the other two. Just as a couple of general ones I would mention Edward Stone briefly. We'll touch upon Pentland Hills in the hurdles division, but he's a smooth traveller who I think will benefit greatly from a bigger field, more strongly run race, less testing ground than he's faced. And I'd say it's too soon to write off Ribble Valley. He was made favourite to beat Master Debonair, who I don't think's a star, and I don't think he's a likely Supreme winner. But he was electric at Wetherby first time for an inexperienced horse, didn't put a foot wrong. I love Nicky Richards, and not just because I do a first-rate impression of his voice.
That's very good.
And just one run where he was 2-3. It was a messy, small field affair. Ascot form, we know no other track seems to produce freakish wide margin winners like Ascot and Fosslas, and that's because Fosslas has barely raced well most of the time. But I just thought he showed more at Wetherby to suggest he could be a smart novice, and there were reasons to forgive the blob. Where he is now and what he's doing since.
Yeah, he's another one that falls into that category of you'd like to see him in the next week or two, wouldn't you, really? Given that he hasn't run since before Christmas. But
he's a strong traveller with keen going sort again, who buried in a Supreme might be able to pick up some pieces, even if the winner's a Mullins horse that's ridden forcefully.
And just we've been through the trips with the novices, just very briefly touching on the Triumph as well. Do you have an opinion on Goshen in terms of his jumping? Or plenty quick to grab him right-handed last time, obviously going back left-handed here.
My old course, new course thing, it's a bit like, I can never, for instance, I've been doing this job for however many years, and I always forget how long horses have to run under penalties before they reassess that sort of thing. And another one is the old course, new course thing, but I always rely on Phil Turner, our chase handicapper, and all round racing, I won't say Bo because he's not, Anorak. And he makes a very valid point that unless they go mad from the start in the Triumph, which isn't out of the question because you've got All Mankind, Aspire Tower and him, Goshen, as the race gets properly serious, there are very few hurdles in the final 7 or 8 furlongs of that race. They've got the one at the top of the hill, long run, and then the one in the straight. And so if he makes a mistake at those under pressure, there's ample time to recover from it. He's basically running a flat race for most of the latter stages, and for me he's got the biggest engine. And again, it's looking sometimes for horses that, he does a few things wrong. The jumping right is a bit of a concern, and perhaps he is an absolute mudlark, but it's seeing horses do things that most horses can't, the majority of horses can, and he for me is that. He can go off at a pace that others wouldn't sustain, and he just seems to be strong at the finish of every single one of them. I really like him. I think as Phil has also said, I think more will be made of that jumping aspect than probably should be, and probably should be with the backdrop of what the course entails in its configuration. I suspect they've had cider grooves. I said on Twitter the other week, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the most natural ability of any horse Gary Moore's ever had, and he should be winning a Triumph if that's the case.